Okay, so the story is called Nail Tech. Um, it starts in the setting is in, I don't know if it's called setting or plot, but it starts in. I'm going to murder the pronunciation of this thing. I think it's Cotswolds in the UK. So there's this like countryside in the UK called the Cotswolds. So we have a protagonist called I don't know, Millie, right? Because that's the most like UK female name I can think of. And then she has a friend called Elizabeth, Lizzy, right? Because that's also like a very UK name. Um, so Millie has like again, like I said, they live in cold walls. Um, she she's a teenager, of course. She's 17 years old. She has always wanted to go to Coachella, right? But her parents like they just wouldn't let her go because Coachella is in America and she lives in the UK, countryside in the UK. So when she was 16, she picked up um this skill essentially for this nail tech skill essentially. So she would go from like house to house in the Cotswolds, and again, I'm very sorry if I'm mispronouncing it. And then she would essentially like offer her services to people. So she would like manicure and like pedicure people's nails, right? So she started doing that when she was like 16, and it kind of like took off. She didn't know it was going to be as successful as it was. So by the time she was 17, she had like a substantial amount of money, like just sitting stash of cash that she was sitting on essentially. And so when the time of Coachella was nearing, she pitched this like a friend, what's her friend's name now? A friend, Lizzy, pitched this like very wild idea to her that they should like since Millie has all this money sitting around doing nothing, that and they've always wanted to go to Coachella, that why don't they like just like sneak off to Coachella? So they were, and so Millie was like, that's like a wild plan. Why didn't I think of that? Um, so they lied to Millie's parents that they lied to both of their parents that they were like going to have a sleepover. So Millie told her parents that she was going to have a sleepover at Lizzy's place, and Lizzy told her parents that she was going to have a sleepover at Millie's place. So Millie's parents thought that Millie was at Lizzy's house for a sleepover over the weekend, while like Lizzy's parents thought that Lizzy was at Millie's place for a sleepover. And this wasn't the first time they were having a sleepover, so their parents just didn't bother to like call to confirm, right? So that weekend they left, essentially they flew to Coachella. So when they got to Coachella, essentially they had a lot of fun. And Coachella is this, by the way, this music festival in America. It takes place in Coachella in California, right? It's a weekend. It's like it's like a weekend music festival essentially, and it attracts like people from all over the world, right? Mostly young people. Okay, cool. So they went for like Coachella. When they got Coachella, of course they had a blast. They saw their favorite artists. And then Millie met this guy, right? His name is like Michael. And they kind of like immediately eat it off. They were like best friends, yada yada yada. They went everywhere together. They were really close essentially. They went out. They had a lot of drinks. And then Michael took Millie to like a tattoo shop, right? And then the tattoo guy was like, does Millie have any tattoos? And Millie was like, no, she has no tattoos. Meanwhile, Michael was like covered in tattoos. Like it was like he had like, it was sleeved up the whole nine, right? Millie was like, she would like to get a tattoo, right? But she wanted to get a tattoo that is like kind of like hidden, that her parents will probably not see. So the tattoo guy was like, okay, they'll put a tattoo like underneath her shoulder for her, like in a armpit essentially. So that's where like her parents probably would never see it, right? So that was decided. Now the second problem was what tattoo she was going to get. So she was like, she's not like initially she wanted to like write out a name there and just write Millie there, right? And then she thought of like putting the name of her pet there that passed away. And then so she was undecided, and then the tattoo guy was like, he knows, right, that when he was like, that he just came back from a trip to see the Great Wall of the Wall of Ishtar, essentially, at the museum, right? And he saw this really cool symbol on the wall, right? And then he showed her the symbol, and she was like, "Oh wow, that looks very very cute. That she would like to have that symbol." So their tattoo artist like tattooed that symbol like right underneath the armpit, right? And then so that was that for that night, right? They had more fun, and then obviously the weekend was over very quickly, and Millie and Lizzy had to go back home for they had to go back home. They had to go back home essentially because Millie was supposed to write GCSE that year. So they had to go back home. Okay, so they went home, and everything went very smoothly. That their parents did not even know they were out of the country. It was like, he went as planned, right? So 3 months down the line, boom, boom, boom. Millie's mom finds out that Millie starts like acting weird. And then essentially Millie's mom finds out that Millie's like, maybe Millie's pregnant, right? So she confronts Millie, and then the whole nine. Millie has to confess that she's pregnant, and then she also has to confess now that she went to she and Lizzy snuck off to like Coachella 3 months ago. So her parents were like severely disappointed, and on top of that, she didn't even quite know who the father of the child was because it was Michael, right? The guy she met at Coachella. And she didn't really have his contacts or anything. They were just like, it was just like a one night stand. It was just a fling, So she didn't even know how to like trace it. So her parents were very, very mad. They were very mad at her, essentially. And they essentially, out of anger, like they kind of kicked her out of the house, right? So she left, and then by the way, Lizzy lives in Manchester, right? A friend lives in Manchester, so she went to stay with her friend Lizzy in Manchester. She wasn't really worried because she had like this stash of money, and she had always wanted to live in. She didn't like the countryside. She had always wanted to live in the big city, so it was like a win-win for her. And she said she was going to have the baby anyway, so she just moved to Manchester with a friend. So there was this. So she wanted to like, since she was in Manchester now, she thought that maybe she would just continue her, and she was going to have a baby, right? And she would need more money, right? So she thought she would just continue her nail tech business essentially. So she there was this like salon that was just like a couple of like it wasn't very far from Lizzy's house, right? So she decided to like go and trying to like get a job there. So she went to the salon, and she tried to interview for a job, right? And then the owner of the salon, I think her name is, I don't know, let's call her Daisy. I don't think that's a very UK name, but let's just call her Daisy. Okay, cool. So let's say Daisy was like, she would like to see what Millie was like, what she could do, right? Just like a demo, right? So Millie was like, what is she going to do now? So she was kind of nervous, right? But so she didn't know what to like, paint for the clients. Like, she wanted to do something generic. She really wanted to impress. So she thought, so the most impressive thing she could come up with was the tattoo symbol that she had underneath her armpits, because again, the symbol was very cool. The symbol was actually a sigil, like a sigil, right? So she painted that symbol on our potential boss's Daisy's hand, right? She manicured it on Daisy's hand, the whole nail tech thing. And then Daisy was very, very impressed. She really liked that because she used like a lot of glitter, the whole nine. And she was so impressed with it that she showed it to like all the women at the salon, and they were so impressed with it that Millie was like hired immediately, and she was hired immediately, and what was I saying? She was hired immediately, and she had to like all the other women wanted, like, they hired her immediately essentially, and all the other women wanted the same manicure, the same nails to be fixed for them. So the whole day was like kind of occupied for her, and she had to like, there were like 7 other women in the salon, and she had to paint the nails for all of them essentially. So at the end of the day, by the time she was done, it was like very late. It was like 7:30 at night. It was super late, right? So she was tired and she was going home. She was very excited too because she just got a job and the pay was good, and it was like this, like, she essentially, she would pay like a there was an amount you had to pay like Daisy every day, at the end of every week, but she essentially kept most of what she like a commission essentially, but she kept most of what she made. So it was like good money, right? So she was very excited, but she was very tired at the same time. So when she closed, like I said, it was around 7:30, and then she made her way to the bus stop. She couldn't wait to get home to tell Lizzy about her new job, right? And how everybody was like crazy about this like symbol this sigil essentially that she carved on their hands, right? So when she got to the bus stop, right, she noticed that everything was weird. First of all, she was the only person on the street going home, and this wasn't the Cotswolds, right? This was like Manchester. It was supposed to be crowded, but everybody apparently had gone somewhere. So she was the only person on the street, and it was 7:30, and it was very dark. So she went to the bus stop. She wasn't faced by any of that, by the way. So she went to the bus stop, and when she got there, immediately she got there, this is England, right? So a double-decker bus, right, stopped at the bus stop, and it was empty. There was nobody inside. And then she was like, that's strange. There's nobody in the bus. But she got inside, and then they started driving. And then the bus driver was like this she couldn't see his face, but it was like this, he had like very long hair, right? So they started driving, and then she noticed that all the people that they were passing they were not moving. They were passing people on the streets, but those people were like static. They were not moving. They just stood there as if they were frozen in time, right? And then she discovered that she looked at her phone when the bus started, and the time was 7:31, right? And then the bus went for around 20 minutes, drove for around 20 minutes. And then she checked her phone again, and it was still, 7:31. And, that trend continued. Everybody they passed by just stopped. The person wasn't moving, and she was like, this is weird. And then they stopped in front of this clock tower. And the clock tower too, surprise, surprise, the time was like 7:31. And by this time, they had driven for like 1 hour. And, it was so weird because the ride was supposed to take not just like 5 minutes, right? But they had driven in this bus for like 1 hour. So at this point, she was like alarmed, right? And so she wanted to like get off the bus, and that's when she noticed that, surprise, surprise, there was nobody driving the bus. The bus driver wasn't there anymore. So she was like, at this point, she was like terrified, and she wanted to like scream and get off the bus. And then all of a sudden, she saw that the bus driver was like sitting behind her. And then he told her that she should, and then she wanted to scream because she finally saw his face, and he had like this very, it was so handsome. His like face was like very airy. Like when someone is so handsome and their handsomeness is like out of this world, right? Okay, cool. So she was just stunned, and then the guy was like, she should not be afraid. That his name is, that he wanted to say thank you first of all. That his name is like Zerel, like Zerel. And then he wants to thank her because she kind of like saved his life, and she was like, when she could gather herself together, she was like, so what does it mean saved his life? And then he was like, that she probably doesn't know it, but that sigil that she was painting, actually that symbol that she was painting on, like carving on her client's hand this morning, that sigil, that symbol was actually a sigil, and that sigil was like used to seal him, that it was imprisoned in the Stonehenge. So in England, there's something called the Stonehenge, right? So apparently the Stonehenge is like a prison, right? And it was a prison that was used to like hold Zerel. Zerel is like this angel that was imprisoned there by the Prince of Persia, right, during the reign of King Saigon in the Sumerian Empire. This is like thousands of years ago, around like 6,000 years ago. So essentially, Zerel has been imprisoned there by the Prince of Persia, right? So the Prince of Persia builds like the Stonehenge to like imprison Zerel, right? So that sigil, right, is it needs to be written, carved 777 times um, before the before Zerel would be like released, right? That was the clause on it, right? So when Zerel got the tattoo, sorry, when Millie got the tattoo at Coachella, that was the 770th time, right? Um, that was the 770th time that sigil had been carved onto, like, had been written essentially. So when she carved it an extra 7 times, she etched it an extra 7 times on our client's like nails, right? She had unwittingly carved the sigil. That was like 777 essentially. The numbers had been complete essentially. So she unwittingly set Zerel free, so it was free from the Stonehenge, right? So he said he wanted to thank her, and I really didn't have that much time. He had to go, and so he had like he wanted to like give her like two options, right? So one good turn deserves another, right? She did him a favor, and he was ready to like do her a favor too. But he had like but she had to pick between two options, right? And then option one was that he had like powers to like dilate time. That was one of his like powers that he had. That he could like dilate time, and he could send her back 6 months before, right? That would send her back 6 months before. Sorry, 3 months before, prior, and then she'll be back to Coachella, and she won't even have to have the baby, and she still gets to go to Coachella, enjoy Coachella. She wouldn't meet the Michael guy, so she won't have to have the baby. So she would have her life back. Her parents won't be mad at her. She won't, have to leave the Cotswolds. Her life would just be normal, right? It's just be like she went to Coachella and she'll come back, and everything will be normal. No pregnancy. She'll just have a normal life back. Or that he could do that for her if he chose. Or he would. The other option was that you could make anybody in the world, anybody, boy or girl, man or woman, fall in love with her for 6 days. But the love was just going to last for 6 days. It wouldn't last for more than 6 days. It was just going to be artificial. And it's going to last for 6 days. So Zerel was like, well, those are the only two options. Those are the only two powers that he has, right? He could make anybody fall in love with anybody for like 6 days. And he could like reverse time for the maximum time was 3 months, right? So she was like, and she had to pick one now because he has to go back to heaven. And he's not even sure that he's going to come back. So he was like, she should pick one. So she was like, she didn't even think about it. She was just immediately, she said that she wants somebody to fall in love with her for 6 months, right? That she has this celebrity crush, a favorite artist, that she wants him to fall in love with her for 6 months. And so the angel was like, so Zerel was like, kind of like, he was like, she probably wants to think about it, right? That she can't just like make that option like that. But she was like, nope. That she doesn't want to go back to that. The option of going back in time 3 months, 3 months back in time is cool, but she doesn't want to. She probably doesn't want to go back to the Cotswolds. That she likes to live in Manchester. She likes her new life, yada yada yada, and that she grew up in the Cotswolds. And she's just sick of the countryside essentially. So the angel was like, okay, he gets that part. So it was like, okay, they'll go with the second option. So the question now is, who does she want to fall in love with her, right? And then she was like, Dustin. And then the angel was like, sorry, which Dustin are you talking about? So apparently Dustin is this like musician, right? That is very, very popular among like teenagers, right? He's from America. He has like, I don't know, 37 Grammy Awards, and he's just like 21 years old, right? It's like they're Michael Jackson essentially, or they are, in fact, like, it's like the biggest like pop star in the world at that time, in their world essentially. His name is Dustin. So the angel was like, that's the worst human being she can pick because number one is a folk boy, like, and that angels have like this list of top 10 of everything, and that Dustin is so much a folk boy that he's almost going to make the top 10 of like folk boys of all time, which includes notorious names like Casanova and the whole nine. And she was like, she doesn't mind. And she was like, she should pick somebody else. Like Dustin, he wouldn't advise her to like pick Dustin, right? That he wouldn't even advise her to like pick that fall in love for 6 days, because from his own experience that it never ends well, right? And she was like, no, she was adamant that she doesn't want to go back to the Cotswolds, and that she's tired of the countryside, and that she wants to keep the baby, yada yada yada. So the angel was like, okay, that Dustin, right? She was like, yes, Dustin. So the angel just disappeared. So she got off the bus and boom, she was at home, right? She got off the bus and just went to her house, and then she told like Lizzy everything that had happened except the part where she met Zerel and the whole nine. So 2 days passed, and then at the end of the second day when she came back from work, Lizzy was like super excited, and then she was like, why is she excited? And then Lizzy showed her like these tickets, right? So apparently Dustin had announced the world tour, and he was like coming to like the UK for the tour. It was going to tour the whole of Europe essentially, but it was coming to the UK. And Lizzy she was very lucky on the website where she ordered the tickets. She was very lucky. She got tickets that actually not only gave them front row access, but also gave them backstage access to meet Dustin. All right. So immediately Lizzy was like very, very happy. So she got the 2 tickets for them. Right. So what's her name? Millie. Immediately, so in Millie's mind, she immediately remembered, like, she was like, oh, Zerel has like done his magic, right? And this is like an opportunity to meet like Dustin, right? So 2 weeks after that, the show took place, and then they both went. They had a blast, and surprise, surprise, they met Dustin at backstage, right? And when Dustin saw her, Dustin took a liking to her, right? He really liked her. He liked her so much that he invited her to like come on tour with him, right? So they went on tour together. They went to Amsterdam. They went to Paris. They just went on tour together. Every city that Dustin went, right, she went with, right? And then on the 3rd day, right, in in Sweden, right, they had like a show in Sweden. So he brought Millie out on stage in Sweden, and then introduced Millie as his like girlfriend, right? Which was like very unprecedented because Dustin had never done that. So Millie became like instantly famous, and she had all this. She became very famous on like Instagram, on TikTok, on social media, the whole nine, and everybody liked her because she was Dustin's boyfriend. Yada yada yada. So she became famous essentially, and then the 4th day they went to another city. Let's say they went to which other cities in Europe is nice. They went to Switzerland. They went everywhere essentially, and then on the 5th day, right, after the show, right, they were at Dustin's hotel room, and then Dustin was like, he wants to introduce Millie to his manager. That he has introduced her to like literally everybody, including his mother, but she hasn't met his manager, and that his manager is downstairs, right? They were in the hotel room together, so that he was going to get his manager, and they were going to like come upstairs, that she should get ready, wear her dinner clothes, and they were going to go downstairs and have like dinner with his manager, so that he could like update him on like what's next essentially. So she was like, okay, so she got ready, and then like 5 minutes after that, Dustin came back upstairs and said that they should go downstairs to meet his like manager. So when he got downstairs immediately, to that shock, right, Dustin's manager turns out to be Michael, the guy she met at Coachella, right, the guy that actually impregnated her. So when she saw him, right, she was like shocked. Now the Michael that I did not really remember her, it was like, I think I know you. I think we've met before. And then, we've met before. Right, and he was like, okay, yeah, we met before. Where did we meet? And she was like, we met 3 months ago at Coachella, yada, yada, yada. And so Michael was like, while this was happening, like, Michael was just surprised. He was like, okay, you guys have met before. I was kind of happy because he thought they were buddies, right? And then Millie told Dustin that doesn't remember that he said that she wanted to tell him something, and that he said that he should tell him after his like tour because he doesn't want to get distracted. And he was like, yeah. I remember that she mentioned that in Amsterdam. And then she was like, okay, what she wanted to tell him is that she's pregnant, right? And he was like, oh, what? She's pregnant? And it was like, how old is the pregnancy? And she was like, 3 months, right? And she was like, okay. And then she was like, well, the bad news is, and she was crying by this point, by the way. And then the bad news is that Michael, his manager, is actually the father of the baby, right? So Dustin was like very, very shocked. Was really, really shocked. And Michael was like, nope. He tried to deny it at first, and he was like, but, he got to a point he could not deny it again. So while all that was happening, Dustin and Michael started fighting because Michael was trying to deny it. Dustin wasn't having it. I was kind of angry at Michael for taking the love of his life, essentially. So they started fighting in the hotel lobby, and then the staff came in. The guards came in. They tried to separate them. While that was happening, what's her name? Millie was very, very anxious and the whole night. So she fainted, and then she woke up in the hospital, essentially. So while she woke up in the hospital, apparently she had been in a coma for 2 days, right? So when she woke up, her parents were there. Dustin was there. Apparently he had called off his store. Emergency, right? Michael was there, essentially. Everybody was there. So when she woke up, right, she saw her parents, essentially, and she saw everybody in the room with her, and then she was so shocked that she fell into a coma again, right? She was almost going to a coma again. So immediately, the doctor just came inside, and the doctor was like, everybody needed to go out, and the doctor sent everybody out, right? And then the doctor woke her up. So when she woke up to the doctor, right? Now she was very, very surprised. She was very, very happy now when she woke up because, surprise, surprise, the doctor that woke her up was not the doctor anything. It was just it was Zerel. It was that angel that helped her, that granted her that started the whole thing for her, essentially. So it was Zerel posing as a doctor. And she was like, oh my God, that she's so happy to see him. It was like, really? And then it was she was like, that everything has scattered and is upside down. It was really that, yes, he told her so. And then she was like, he's here to rescue her, right? It was that it just came to say that he told her so, that's she looked at his face, and she looked at his face. She was like, okay, that is his I told you so face. And that's why it's here. He just had to tell her that she told her so. And he was she was kind of pissed at first, and then she started laughing because the face he made was very, very funny, right? So she was like he should help her. And it was well, of course that the wish that he granted her, that she still has a wish, right? She was she still has it. It was yeah. She was but she already spent it on Dustin. And it was no. That does she remember that he just disappeared, right? And he never said that maybe he was going to grant the request or not. And she said, yeah, she remembered him just disappearing. She was like, okay, he said he didn't do anything, right? That he just had to go immediately, that Angel Michael sent for him, so he just had to go immediately, right? And so she was like, oh, okay. So she was very, very happy. So she was so she still has that, to confirm what he was saying, right? That he still has the same, she still has the same 2 requests, that she could either go back in time 3 months or make somebody else fall in love with her for 6 days. And he was yep, that she still has the request, right? And so she was how come she met Dustin, and how come he likes her and everything? And she was well, that he doesn't know. Maybe it's our luck that these things happen, right? Maybe it was just pure luck. And then on top of that, Dustin is a fuckboy, right? So all these things were just part of PR, that the concert that he planned to make himself more likable in the UK. His PR team planned that they planned the whole thing that they will have they'll put, out of all the tickets, the thousands of tickets that they will sell, they'll make 2 tickets available for backstage access. And the lucky girls that got it, one of them was going to be Dustin's girlfriend during the tour, and then Dustin was going to, at the concert in Sweden, right? Dustin was going to bring her out as his girlfriend. It was just a PR stunt, essentially. It wasn't really like her, right? So it was just planned, right? So, and Millie just happened to be lucky that it was her, that it wasn't Zerel's doing, right? So Zerel was okay, does she want him to want? So Zerel was since she likes Dustin so much, so does he want him to redo the whole thing again and make him this time actually make Dustin like her? And then she was no. That she doesn't want it. So, and she was so what they were talking, right? Yeah. Um, um, so she was like, no, she doesn't want. So she was like, what does she want? She was like, she wants to go back. I was like, what? She wants to go back now? She was like, yeah, she wants to go back in 3 months. So Dustin was like, okay, that she's going to go back to Coachella now. In 3, 2, 1, boom. And then all of a sudden she was back in Coachella. Her and Lizzy, right? They were back in Coachella and they were walking around. And then like immediately after I got back to Coachella, right? She saw I'm trying to like rush the whole thing now. So immediately she got back to Coachella, she saw what's it called? Michael coming, right? And he was smiling, and then he said hi to her, and she said hi. But immediately this time she was very smart. So instead of like chatting up with Michael, right? She told Michael that Michael should meet our friend. So he quickly like introduced Michael to Lizzy, right? And then Michael was like, wow, that since she did that, right? That, and he kind of likes Lizzy, that, one good turn deserves another, that he was going to introduce her to somebody. And it was like, okay, who? And then she said like, oh, there's actually a manager, and then she won't believe who is managing. And she was like, she doesn't know that she guessed. And then she guessed wrong. Of course, she knew he was managing Michael, because hindsight is 2020. She was managing Dustin because hindsight is 2020, right? So she pretended that she didn't know, right? And so it was like, oh, she's managing. So Michael told her that he's managing Dustin, and that I should come and let him introduce him to Dustin. So she called up Dustin, and Dustin was inside his trailer, right? So he took Millie to like Dustin's trailer, and then Dustin met her, and they became friends. And so Dustin was like, okay, he has done his part. So he went on. So Michael was like, he has done his part. So he went on to like chill with like what's her name? Millie's friend Lizzy, and then Dustin and what's his name? Dustin and Millie became like, they hung out for the night. The end.